It started with the kind of exhaustion that feels like a physical weight, a sandbag draped over my shoulders that I'd been in Portland, Maine for 3 days on a consulting gig, and all I wanted was to be home in my own apartment, with my own coffee maker and my own bed. The Portland International Jetport is a small, manageable airport, the kind where you can show up an hour before your flight and still have time to grab a coffee. That night, it felt especially quiet, hollowed out. The fluorescent lights hummed a low, steady note that seemed to vibrate in my back teeth. I wasn't alone. Chloe was with me. She worked in the graphic design department of the same firm, and we'd been sent as a 2-person team to present to the client. She was a distraction that I in the best and worst way. She was sitting next to me on the cold, hard plastic seats of the gate area, one leg crossed over the other, making her calf muscle flex. She was wearing dark, tight jeans and a simple black V-neck top. I kept catching myself staring at the way the fabric stretched over her chest, the subtle movement when she shifted to look at her phone. Her lips were glossy, a pale pink, and she had a habit of pressing them together when she was thinking, a little gesture that sent a stupid, unwelcome jolt through me every time. We weren't together. We were co-workers. Friendly but with a professional line I'd never dared cross, despite the fantasies that would pop into my head at the most inopportune times. During client meetings in the elevator right now, while we were both tired and stranded, I'd imagine what it would be like to just lean over and kiss that spot on her neck, just below her ear, to see if her skin tasted as clean as it looked. It was inappropriate, guilt-inducing, and under the flat, tired airport lights, it felt more intense than usual. The silence between us was heavy, but it was a comfortable heavy, the kind you only get with someone you've spent 72 hours straight with. I can't believe we have to connect through Newark, she sighed, stretching her arms over her head. The hem of her top rode up, exposing a sliver of smooth, pale stomach that I quickly looked away, feigning intense interest in the arrival screen. It's going to be midnight by the time we get home. Could be worse, I said, my voice a little rough. I cleared my throat. Could be delayed. As if on cue, a tinny voice echoed through the terminal. Flight 2241 to Newark Liberty International Airport is now delayed. Please check the monitors for updated departure time. Chloe groaned and slumped back in her seat. You had to say it, Mark, you literally had to say it. I offered a weak smile. Sorry, guess we're here for a while. An hour bled into 2. The airport emptied out as the last few flights of the night departed. The janitorial staff came through, their buffing machines whirring, leaving the faint, sharp smell of lemon-scented cleaner in their wake. The gate agent, a young guy with a name tag that read Tyler, looked as bored as we felt. The place was becoming a tomb. I'm going to go for a walk, Chloe announced, standing up and arching her back in another stretch that made my mouth go dry. My ass is going numb. Want anything? No, I'm good, I managed. I watched her walk away, the sway of her hips in those jeans, the way her ankles looked so delicate above her practical but stylish sneakers. I felt a flush of heat that had nothing to do with the stale airport air and everything to do with a deep, gnawing loneliness that these business trips always exacerbated. I shook my head, trying to dislodge the image. This was not the time or the place. To distract myself, I decided to head down to the baggage claim area. There was something calming about the empty carousels, the giant mouth of the baggage drop, the silent, digital flip dashboards. It was a part of the airport that was purely functional, no pretense. I took the escalator down, the metal steps clinking softly under my weight. It was even quieter down there. The lights were dimmed, save for one bank directly over Carousel 3. And it was moving. A low, mechanical grumble filled the cavernous space. That was odd. There were no flights arriving. I checked the screen. It was blank. I walked closer, my footsteps echoing. The carousel was one of those old, automated loops, a flat black rubber belt traveling in a slow, endless circle. And on it there was luggage. Not a lot, just a few suitcases. All of them were identical. Jet black, hardshell, medium-sized rollers, the kind you see in every airport in the world. I leaned against a cold metal pillar, watching them go around. It was hypnotic, the steady rumble, the sameness of the bags. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. All black. Round and round they went, like toys on a conveyor belt in some deserted factory. Then I noticed the tags. From where I was standing I couldn't read them. They were just white rectangles fluttering as the bags moved. But something about their uniformity nagged at me that I took a few steps closer, the rubber mat of the claim area muffling my steps. The first bag came around and I squinted. The luggage tag was one of those stiff paper ones looped through the handle. Printed on it, in crisp standard font, was a name. Henderson. A cold trickle, like a single drop of ice water, traced a path down my spine. Henderson was my mother's maiden name. It's not a super common name. A coincidence, surely. A weird, random coincidence that I watched the bag pass, my eyes fixed on it until it disappeared into the rubber curtains at the back of the carousel. My heart was beating a little faster. The next bag came into view. I took another step, close enough now to almost touch the moving belt. Henderson. The same font, the same name. I felt a jolt, a full body flinch. Asterisk, no, this isn't happening. Asterisk, I quickly moved to the next spot where a bag would emerge. I was breathing shallowly now, my palms slick. Henderson. Every single one of them. All 5 black suitcases going round and round on an empty carousel for a flight that didn't exist, had my mother's maiden name on the tag. The mechanical groan of the carousel seemed to grow louder, filling my head. The fluorescent lights above flickered, just for a second, a quick stutter of light and dark. In that instant of darkness, I thought I saw a figure standing on the far side of the carousel, a tall, thin silhouette. But when the light steadied, there was no one there, just the empty space and the endlessly circulating bags. I backed away, my skin crawling. I needed to get out of there. I turned and almost ran back to the escalator, taking the steps 2 at a time. When I got back to the gate, I was out of breath. Chloe was back, sipping a bottle of water. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a laugh, but it came out strained, not just tired. "This place is giving me the creeps." "Tell me about it," she said, taking another sip. I watched the line of her throat as she swallowed. Under normal circumstances, the sight would have captivated me. Now, it barely registered. The image of those tags was burned onto my retinas. Henderson. Henderson. "Let's go to the bar," I suggested suddenly. "The one near security. I need a drink." She raised an eyebrow. "It's probably closed." "We can check." It was, of course. The metal gate was pulled down over the entrance. The whole airport was shutting down around us. We were trapped in this liminal space, this non-place, with our delay stretching into an indefinite stay. We returned to our gate. Tyler, the gate agent, was gone. The desk was dark. The only sound was the relentless, low hum of the lights. We were the only 2 people in the entire concourse. "This is seriously weird," Chloe whispered, her voice small. She hugged her arms around herself, and the action pulled her top tight across her chest. I noticed the delicate silver chain around her neck, the way it lay against her collarbone. For a fleeting second, my fear was eclipsed by a sharp, vivid image of my mouth on that collarbone, my hands on her waist. The contrast was jarring, nauseating. My desire felt like a betrayal of the primal fear that was starting to curdle in my gut. "I'm sure they'll find us a hotel soon," I said, trying to sound reassuring. I was failing. We sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. I kept glancing towards the escalator that led down to baggage claim, half expecting to see one of those black suitcases come gliding up, or that tall, thin figure standing at the top, watching us. Then I heard it. A sound that shouldn't be there. Asterisk, rumble, clunk, rumble, asterisk. The baggage carousel was still running. "Do you hear that?" I asked Chloe. She tilted her head, listening. "Hear what?" "That machinery from downstairs." She shook her head. "I don't hear anything, Mark. It's just the lights." She gave me a concerned look. "You really are tired." But I could hear it, clear as day. The grinding rhythm was a bass line to the treble of the fluorescent hum. It was calling to me. I had to go back. I had to prove to myself that it was still happening, that I wasn't losing my mind. "I'll be right back," I said, standing up. "Gotta use the bathroom." "Don't get lost," she said with a weak smile. I didn't head for the restrooms. I went straight back to the escalator. The sound grew louder as I descended. The carousel was still moving, and now there were more suitcases. Not 5.7. All black, all identical. My feet carried me forward, compelled by a morbid, terrified curiosity. I walked right up to the edge of the belt, my heart hammering against my ribs. Henderson. I reached out, my hand trembling, and snatched the tag off the nearest suitcase as it passed. That I held the stiff paper in my hand. That it felt real. That it smelled of paper and ink. The barcode was crisp. The name was printed in that same unremarkable font. That I turned it over. Nothing on the back. I stuffed it into my jeans pocket as if it were contraband. That I had to have proof. As I stood there, the carousel gave a louder groan, and then, with a final shuddering clunk, it stopped. The sudden silence was deafening, a physical pressure on my eardrums. The suitcases sat motionless on the belt, and in the new quiet, I heard a soft, shuffling footstep behind me. That I spun around. There was a man standing about 20 feet away near the rental car counters. That he was tall and painfully thin, dressed in a dark, ill-fitting suit that looked like it was from another decade. His hair was a nondescript brown, slicked back from a high forehead. His face was pale and long, his features oddly blurred, as if I were looking at him through a slightly fogged window. That he was just standing there, staring at me. Not at the carousel. Not at the suitcases. My blood ran cold. This was the silhouette I'd seen in the flicker. That I stood my ground, frozen. That we stared at each other for what felt like a full minute. That he didn't move. That he didn't blink. His expression was utterly blank, a void. Then he took a step forward. That it wasn't a normal step. That it was a slow, deliberate slide, as if his feet weren't quite lifting off the ground. My fight-or-flight instinct finally kicked in. That I turned and ran, not caring how it looked. That I took the escalator steps 3 at a time, my lungs burning. That I didn't look back until I was back in the concourse, collapsing into the seat next to Chloe. "Whoa, what's wrong with you?" she asked, her eyes wide. "You're white as a sheet." "There's a guy down there," I panted. "A weird guy." She peered down the escalator. "I don't see anyone." I looked. The baggage claim was empty. The carousel was still. The man was gone. He was there, I insisted, my voice trembling. Just standing there, staring. "Maybe it was security?" she offered, though she didn't sound convinced. "He wasn't security." I pulled the luggage tag from my pocket and showed it to her. "And look at this." That I took this off one of the suitcases down there. "They all have this name on them." She took the tag, her fingers brushing against mine. That a spark of static electricity jumped between us, making us both flinch. She looked down at the name. "Henderson?" she read aloud. She frowned. "That's your mom's name, right? You mentioned that once." The fact that she remembered, that she'd filed away that insignificant piece of information about me, sent another, different kind of shiver through me. That it felt intimate. "Yeah," I said quietly, "it is." She handed the tag back to me as if it were hot. "That's really creepy." Marked. "A coincidence, but creepy." "It's not a coincidence," I said, my voice low and intense. "There were 7 of them, all exactly the same. On a carousel that shouldn't have been moving." Before she could answer, a voice cut through the silence. "Excuse me?" We both jumped. That it was Tyler, the gate agent. That he was back, looking harried. "Sorry about the wait, folks. That we've got a hotel voucher for you. That a shuttle will be out front in 10 minutes. The relief was so potent it felt like a drug. That we gathered our carry-ons and followed Tyler through the deserted terminal towards the exit. That as we passed the top of the escalator leading down to baggage claim, I couldn't resist one last look. The carousel was dark and still. But standing at the very edge of the shadows, right where the light from the concourse faded into black, was the tall, thin man. That he wasn't looking at the carousel. That he was looking up. Me. His head was tilted at an unnatural angle, and even from this distance I could feel the weight of his gaze, empty and hungry at the same time. That I grabbed Chloe's arm, probably too hard. "Don't look," I hissed, but she followed my gaze. That I felt her stiffen beside me. "Oh God," she whispered. That we hurried after Tyler, not speaking, not looking back. The automatic doors slid open with a whoosh, and the cold, damp Portland night air hit my face like a blessing. The shuttle was there, its engine idling. That we climbed aboard, the only passengers. As the bus pulled away from the curb, I stared out the window at the terminal. On the second floor, in the window of the gate we'd just left, a figure stood, the thin man. His hands were pressed flat against the glass, his face a pale smudge in the darkness, watching us leave. The hotel was a generic chain a few miles from the airport. The check-in was a blur. That we were given adjacent rooms on the 4th floor. The corridor was long and silent, lit by sconces that cast deep, moving shadows. Well, Chloe said, stopping outside her door, key card in hand. This has been a night. Yeah, I said, my voice hoarse. My eyes were drawn to the line of her jaw, the way her hair fell over her shoulder. The fear had heightened everything, made my senses raw. The desire was still there, a low thrum beneath the panic, and it felt more dangerous than ever. Try to get some sleep, Mark, she said softly. She reached out and squeezed my arm. Her touch was warm, electric. It lingered for a second too long. Our eyes met, and in the dim hotel hallway light, I saw something flicker in hers. Not just fear, but a shared, wild understanding of the strangeness of the night. A connection for a crazy moment. I thought she might invite me in. I wanted her to. I wanted to lose myself in the warmth of her body, to use her as a shield against the cold dread that had taken root inside me. But she just gave my arm a final squeeze, swiped her key card, and disappeared into her room. The door clicked shut, a definitive sound. I stood there for a moment, alone in the hallway, the ghost of her touch still burning on my skin. Then I went into my own room. It was standard and soulless. I dropped my bag and went straight to the window, pulling the curtains aside. The hotel looked out over a parking lot, and beyond it, a strip of woods. And beyond that, I could just make out the faint, lit outline of the Portland Jetport control tower. It felt like it was watching me. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the black suitcases going round and round. Henderson. I saw the thin man's blank face, his sliding walk. I took the luggage tag out of my pocket and placed it on the nightstand. It seemed to glow in the dark. After tossing and turning for what felt like hours, I got up to get a glass of water from the bathroom. As I passed the door connecting my room to Chloe's, I stopped. I heard a sound, a soft, rhythmic shuff, shuff, shuff. Like someone sliding their feet slowly across the carpet. It was coming from her room. My blood turned to ice. I pressed my ear against the cool wood of the door. The shuffling stopped.